Hello, welcome to Women on Fire, to this episode about sleep. And I'm going to share a little bit of the science of sleep with you, some statistics, and 9 tips to help make your sleep better. There's a lot of goodness in here, so I hope you get a lot out of it. So, thanks so much for joining me today as I spend a short time on the subject of sleep, which can affect so many of us. So, on that note, how is your sleep? If you answered not so great, I have to tell you, you're not alone, and I'm right there alongside you, or I have been in the past. In fact, sleep loss is considered something of a growing global epidemic. So it's something that a lot of the population have experienced a lack of sleep. Drill down into menopause, and sleep disruption can be one of the major common signs and symptoms of perimenopause, but also post-menopause, maybe even more so in post-menopause. And sleepless nights for me equal feeling ill, feeling completely discombobulated, unable to work, hungry for junk food, and all those things. Can you relate? You probably can if you've had sleep issues. But when you actually look into the science, it's all laid out for us. So I want to share some of that with you today. And neuroscientist Dr. Matthew Walker, PhD's book. He's the author of the international bestseller, Why We Sleep. And if you bear with me, I'd just love to read a little bit. Routinely sleeping less than 6 hours a night weakens your immune system, increases your risk of some cancers, and can be linked to developing Alzheimer's disease. So that's really huge for women in midlife. What's more, moderate reductions of sleep for just 1 week, can disrupt blood sugar levels so much that you could be classified as pre-diabetic. And the likelihood of your coronary arteries becoming blocked and brittle increases, along with the risk of cardiovascular disease, stroke, and heart failure. And heart disease is a big issue for women in midlife. Plus, lack of sleep also contributes to mental health issues, including depression, anxiety, and suicidality. Also, a big deal for women going through menopause. In a nutshell, he says the shorter your sleep, the shorter your lifespan. So it's huge. It's not just about how we feel, it's also about how long we live. But wait, I have some more to share from him. And you are really going to want to know about this bit if you're worried about weight gain, as I know a lot of women in our community are. So Dr. Walker goes on. Do you notice you get more hungry when you're tired? Well, you're not imagining that. It's due to hormones, but not the ones you think of in menopause, like estrogen, etc. It's to do with ghrelin, the hormone, that's your hunger hormone. I remember that by G equals greed. And leptin, which is your satiety hormone. It tells you when you've had enough to eat. So lack of sleep increases ghrelin, so therefore your hunger, and suppresses leptin, so you don't get that off switch, I've had enough. And it contributes to increased weight, or more specifically an increase in belly fat. So it's not just about belly and menopausal hormone shifting fat distribution, it's also about sleep. We know that fat settles itself around the abdomen post 40, and it's very distressing to some of you. I hear that a lot. And we also know that you find it very difficult to shift, although it can be shifted, and I'm here to tell you that. But there can be a cascade of reasons behind this belly, but sleep, or rather the lack of sleep, can definitely be a contributing factor. So that's something to know. In fact, the reduced sleep levels of the 21st century are believed to contribute to the obesity epidemic, and the figures for that have more than doubled since the 1980s. Big figures, big figures. Many studies show a lack of sleep and the associated disruption of blood sugar, ghrelin, and leptin, and an increase in the stress hormone cortisol contributes to weight gain in a big way. And we've just talked about all this in this conversation. It can also be accompanied by a reduction in movement because, as we all know, if we are feeling sleep deprived, we don't often want to go out for a run. One paper, which I'm going to link to in the show notes for you, says sleep loss could also affect energy balance by increasing sedentary behavior and decreasing non-exercising energy expenditure. So it's not well studied, but it makes sense that fatigue makes us feel less prone to exercise, and our resting metabolism therefore goes down because we're not moving as much, and our resting metabolism tends to go down as we grow older anyway. So that all can contribute to your belly as well, or any weight gain that you might be struggling with. Isn't that huge? I mean, it is just massive, the impact that a lack of sleep can have on our life, and sleep disruption is absolutely one of the hallmarks of menopause. But were you even aware of how much it can impact you? I hope if you weren't, that you've learned something today and you have something that you can take away with you. So sleep is key to our well-being and also our productivity, our brain function, and a healthy weight. And it almost goes without saying then that it's crucial to your best perimenopause, menopause journey as well. So we need to get to know our circadian rhythm, which is to do with light and dark, if you don't know, although it's not always. And actually, Dr. Walker cites some amazing studies in his book, Why We Sleep, about that. But for simplicity's sake, in this conversation, let's just keep it to the circadian rhythm being a human 24-hour clock of light and dark. So we have daylight and night times modulating these things. So our body is linked into that. We have a tiny, tiny pea-sized gland in our brain called the pineal gland, and that sits in the middle around here. It's inactive during the day, but as darkness falls, it begins to secrete melatonin, which you've probably heard of melatonin. It usually gets started produced or released at about 9 p.m. and it's very calming, and it gets us ready for sleep, and it counters the stress hormone cortisol, hopefully, if your cortisol is not too high. It also signals the brain to just calm us down. It's actually a beautiful time as long as it can do its job. For ideal sleep, melatonin levels should rise and cortisol levels decrease, because cortisol is not just our stress hormone. We need it. It's what gets us up in the morning and gets us motivated. And in daylight, the pineal gland becomes inactive again, cortisol gets produced, and off we go on our day. But yeah, certainly, ideally, cortisol shouldn't lower as we go through the day. It should not keep recurring. A neurotransmitter called adenosine also comes into play with the science of sleep. Now, it builds up in our brains during the day, so it starts quite low, and as we go through the day, it builds up, causing what is known as sleep pressure. And sleep occurs when it's at its peak. So we want it to build, we want it to reach a peak so that it will help our sleep. and help us stay asleep. In the morning, adenosine is depleted by sleep, and then it begins to build again. And during that wake cycle, which is the light time of the circadian rhythm. So how much sleep is enough? Yeah. In 2017, the US Center for Disease Control actually did some studies on menopausal women, and I'm just going to read some statistics for you. Sleep problems increase during perimenopause or in women in their late 30s to 40s. 56% of the women studied slept less than 7 hours a night. And really, I mean, for me, everyone's different, but I need 8 or 9 hours. The findings also showed that nearly a quarter of women in perimenopause reported having trouble falling asleep. And I hear that a lot, and I've experienced that myself as well. So 30% had trouble staying asleep. And I've heard from a lot of you that you might wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. That can be alcohol related. If you have wine, your liver can sometimes wake you up at 2 or 3. That's just a little tip there. And nearly 50% of the women in perimenopause awoke still feeling tired, which is not a fun place to be because sleep's supposed to refresh us, right? Once women, we're still on those studies, so once women transition to postmenopause, these statistics tended to improve, but it definitely wasn't the case for all. And that's been my experience. So what they found was that 40% of women in postmenopause slept less than 7 hours per night. 27% struggled to fall asleep. That's quite high. And 35% found it difficult to stay asleep. And what's more, insomnia became more common. So that's actually a big deal. In other research, the American National Sleep Foundation found that if you only get 6 hours of quality sleep per night, your mental performance is worse than if you had a blood alcohol level of 0.1%. Can you believe that? It's huge, right? So this lack of sleep can contribute to a whole lot of things. It can increase your susceptibility to having a car accident. It can lead to a lack of alertness, which isn't great when you're driving or working. Energy loss, brain fog, a loss of libido, forgetfulness, high blood pressure, depression, irritability, premature aging of the skin, and as I said before, increased likelihood of car accidents, but also overall accidents as well, like tripping over and things like that, and weight gain, which I spoke to you about grail and leptin before. So there's a lot, and some of those can cross over with menopause symptoms, can't they? What we want to do in this menopause is look at some things you can do. Now, bear in mind that these may not work for everybody because we are all different and it depends what's triggering it in you too. But certainly there's some lifestyle factors here and some rituals you can put in place. And from where I'm sitting, they're worth a try. Get up early and go to bed early. Some of these I've got from Dr. Walker as well. Be consistent with the times you get up in the morning and when you turn the lights out. Like on weekends, don't tend to sleep in or have late nights because that can disrupt your whole circadian rhythm. Try and get in sync with your sleep-wake cycle because as we talked about, this is your natural cycle. This is your circadian rhythm. This is how we are engineered to live. It's a good idea to get out in the bright light in the morning. In fact, I think that's becoming more and more well known. But we're going to talk about that a little bit more a bit later. Dr. Walker has some things to say on that. He also says that as creatures of habit, people have a very, very hard time adjusting to changes in sleep habits. So give yourself a few weeks of putting in some changes if you are having trouble. At night, turn off your screens on your devices as early as possible, as the blue light they emit isn't sleep or health friendly. And I've got some tips on that to help us understand that a bit more a little bit later too. So I know this can be difficult when you've got a TV program you're addicted to or a book that you're hooked on, right? It's very hard to put those down. It's so easy to become hooked on Netflix these days, or Neon, Apple TV, whatever your method of choice is. I mean, I used to be a huge book reader, but now I'm more Netflix because I think it's so easy. And if you're managing your family, aging parents, kids, a household, a business, whatever, you may not have enough hours in the day, but it's really important to have that wind down time. We just cannot do the things we used to do. And truly, lights out at about 9:30 to 10 can make all the difference to how you look, feel, and function in the world. I always say it's not called beauty sleep for anything, but I think these days it should be called vitality sleep or something. It just doesn't have that same lilt that beauty sleep has, does it? But it affects all of those things. The body cellularly rejuvenates between 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. So it's a crucial time for healing and rejigging. That's why it's not a good idea not to eat at night, so your body's not working on digestion. And I learned that 9:30 p.m. trick through the wisdom of Ayurveda some years ago, and it does take discipline at first, but it's truly life changing. Truly life changing. So, number two, get rid of artificial light and minimize the blue. Yes, I am reading these because it's a lot to remember and I want to share everything with you. So, daylight is key to regulating daily sleep patterns, says Matthew Walker. Try to get outside in natural sunlight for at least 30 minutes per day. If possible, wake up with the sun or use very bright lights in the morning, he says. Sleep experts recommend that if you have problems falling asleep, you should get an hour of exposure to morning light and turn down the lights before bedtime. Huge tip there. Huge tip there. In fact, like I've alluded to before, light is a very, very big deal in the sleep wake cycle. We are very, very blessed to live in a time where we can just flick on light at the flick of a switch, right? But it does tend to play havoc with our circadian rhythm and our genetic clocks for energy and cellular repair, the way that we were designed. So one way to trick your brain into turning into sleep mode is to dim the lights and load software onto your phone that nixes blue light. Now, let's talk about this. I spoke to a sleep expert, Jane Wrigglesworth. She comes from howtosleepwell.org, and she says it's all to do with lux levels, which measure light intensity. Now, they should be less than 180 lux, but a typically lit home may have lux readings in the range of 300 to 500, she said. So you can work out the watts to lux in your home by checking out a calculator called rapidtables.com. I will put that link in the resources for you. There'll be a lot of links in the resources for this one. Scientists say we need exposure to light during the day that's between 1,000 to 2,000 lux to keep our bodies ticking over. No, so that's where getting out into that bright morning light, you will get that. However, Jane says, most of us work indoors, so a brightly lit room measures about only 500 lux compared to about 10,000 lux outdoors in the early morning, and get this, 100,000 lux at noon. That's out in the natural daylight. So without exposure to bright light during the day, your sleep wake cycle is disrupted, which can affect not only your sleep, but your mood, energy, and your alertness. So there's some gold there that Jane shared with us. It also explains why some people are prone to seasonal affective ordered during the winter months. So even in winter when it's cold, it's a really good idea to get out there in daylight. The other thing that Jane shared is that as we grow older, our lights, the retinas in our eyes become less light sensitive. So we need 3 to 5 times more light than younger people. 3 to 5 times more light than younger people. That's huge. So, and as you've probably read countless times, computers, tablets, mobiles, and TVs emit a bright blue light, which, what I didn't know, suppresses the production of melatonin, which is your sleep hormone, which is produced at 9 a.m. to encourage our slumber. So that throws our whole circadian rhythm into disarray. Do you see it? Jane also adds that sleeping next to radiation emitting devices, and that can be mobile phones and cordless phones, can be a major contributor to sleep problems. Both the handset and the base of a cordless phone, I did not know this, emit radiation even when they're not in use. So I don't know how many of us have those phones anymore, but most of us have mobile phones. So aside from causing other health issues, these EMFs or electromagnetic fields as they're called, they disrupt that pineal gland that we were talking about that becomes active at night that produces melatonin. EMFs also emanate from computers, Wi-Fi, and all wireless devices as well. So, there's a lot going against us when it comes to sleep. So it's well documented that using your devices at night can interrupt your sleep. I use the Flux app on my laptop, which you can set it to whatever timing you want. Mine's set to 9 p.m. and it sort of dims the light. It makes the light more red, which is better for our sleep and our brains. You can also get some they're not special, they're light bulbs that actually alter the way the light they reflect, and they only use your natural switch. Number 3 is to include magnesium in your diet. Many of us don't get enough magnesium. The recommended daily intake is about 300 milligrams per day. From our diet, most of us are getting about 200 milligrams per day, if that. So magnesium relaxes the muscles, balances the nervous system, and helps us sleep. It's an amazing mineral. I call it the mighty mineral. Now, Jane has also shared some tips here, and what she says is that stress depletes magnesium, as does intense exercise. So the more you sweat, the more magnesium you excrete. So that's something to bear in mind. And if you like your vino, it's a known factor in magnesium deficiency. In fact, alcohol acts as a magnesium diuretic. Experts say that our kidneys excrete as much as 260% more magnesium within just a few minutes of consuming alcohol. Is that not huge? And guess what is a sign of magnesium deficiency? Insomnia. So, here's some foods you can add to your diet that are high in magnesium. Bananas, dark chocolate, don't you love that? That's dark chocolate, not the milk chocolate, over 70%. Legumes like edamame beans, lentils, chickpeas, and peas. Seeds such as flax, pumpkin, and chia. Seeds are so underrated. Kelp. Don't know if you've ever got into kelp, but it's amazing. Whole grains like oats, buckwheat, quinoa, and barley. Wheat bran, wheat germ, almonds. So tasty. Very filling too. They help your leptin. They help make you feel full. Cashew nuts. Brazil nuts, or a couple of Brazil nuts a day also is very good for your thyroid, which we really need to support at this time. Dulse, which is seaweed, that's really tasty. Millet, pecan nuts, walnuts, which are also high in omega-3 essential fatty acids, which our bodies thrive on. Rye, tofu and tempeh, brown rice, figs and dates, leafy greens, shrimp, avocado, parsley, dandelion greens, garlic, fatty fish. If you don't have plenty of these foods in your diet, then take a good quality supplement. You want 160 milligrams of elemental magnesium. What you're looking for is a chelated form such as citrate, ascorbate, glycinate, and taurate. They're quite well assimilated by the body. And be aware that some people get sensitive, or if you're sensitive, you may get diarrhea from high doses of the citrate form. So just reduce your dose. Take your magnesium about 20 to 30 minutes before you go to sleep at night. And be aware that people with kidney disease or severe heart disease should only take magnesium under a doctor's supervisions. That's really important to note. So number 4, and we're still on diet here, add high melatonin and tryptophan containing foods to your diet. Now some of these are going to cross over with that magnesium list I just shared with you. Aren't they delicious, these foods though? So I think sleep enhancing foods are delicious. So this is because eating a diet high tryptophan is an amino acid, and it helps synthesize or helps produce melatonin. Tryptophan also produces vitamin B3, which is niacin, and the neurotransmitter serotonin, which also enhances sleep. So high melatonin foods, here's your list: almonds and walnuts, cherries, eggs, fish, goji berries, kiwi fruit, and milk. Your high tryptophan foods, that's the amino acid that helps the production of melatonin: edamame beans, eggs, nuts, oats, poultry, salmon, seeds, soy, as in tofu, soy milk, and soy sauce. So while we're on the subject too, I did make a note to share with you that avoid caffeine and alcohol. Caffeine, cola, some teas and chocolate, and I'm very sorry about that, but I'm talking about the milk chocolate, all contain caffeine, which is a stimulant. And according to Dr. Matthew Walker, they can take up to 8 hours to wear off. I've said about 10 hours in some places. What's more, the caffeine plays havoc with the adenosine, that neurotransmitter that builds up during the day, and sends us into sleep mode when it's at its peak. And alcohol just plays havoc with menopausal women anyway, but particularly their sleep. So number 5 was take an Epsom salts bath. Best thing ever. Technically, Epsom salt, magnesium sulfate. Okay, so by having a bath in Epsom salts, you are able to absorb it into your skin, magnesium topically. Our skin is a big mouth. It absorbs what we put on it. And the bath also can help deplete or soothe inflammation, circulatory system, cardiovascular health, and blood sugar. So that it's great to add to your menopause toolkit. It is a wonderful thing. For good measure, I recommend using a very high quality lavender essential oil or clary sage. Actually, I'll link to a very, very good story we've got on recommendations of that with Dr. Bo Hengen from Absolute Essential. She does amazing quality essential oils. Matthew Walker also says in Why We Sleep that the drop in body temperature from having the bath may help you feel sleepy, and the bath can help you relax and slow down so you're more ready to sleep. So it's a win-win. Number 6 is journal. If you're anything like me, you're an overthinker, and it's really difficult to shut off your brain at night. But what's been surprising for me, and it might be for you too, is that a racing mind and a very, very loud inner critic or inner mean girl, which we all have, negativity bias, is actually, these are lesser known symptoms of perimenopause. Who knew, right? So what I found, a good trick I found, is to get a journal and to write everything out, like things that are bothering you, things that have happened during the day, things. It's called a brain dump, and it really works, and it sort of empties your mind, so it gets rid of a little bit of that chatter. Hopefully, there's a wonderful book called The Surrender Experiment by Michael A. Seligman that I recommend to everyone, and he goes into that inner chatter. It is very real. So brain dumping is a great way to quieten it down. Number 7 is seek out a yoga nidra or deep relaxation yoga class. Now this is amazing. Yoga nidra is, it's like having the deepest sleep, and in fact it's often called a yogic sleep or a conscious sleep. Now the science says it's even better for us than sleep. There is science behind this. It's amazing. And it guides, what it does is it guides the body into a deep state of relaxation. It's just beautiful. And you lie on the floor on a yoga mat. You might be supported by a heavy blanket is a wonderful thing, or yoga bolsters or blocks. And a yoga nidra instructor will guide you through a meditation, and usually that starts with a body scan. It's very soothing, and you can go from your fingers and toes right up. It goes into your teeth and your jaw and the bones of your scalp and just relaxes you amazingly. It is a beautiful thing, and the science says that it's very helpful for those struggling with anxiety and insomnia. And researchers actually looked at images of the brain, and it shows that what it showed was that it does slow down certain aspects of it, that when it's speeded up, it can link in with anxiety and insomnia. So it's hardly surprising that a practice referred to as yogic sleep can help with sleep concerns, such as falling asleep or staying asleep. Multiple studies show yoga nidra improves quality of sleep and insomnia. So it's well worth the go. It is such a beautiful ritual. Anyone can do it and anyone can enjoy it. And, it can make not just a difference to your sleep, but your entire perimenopause, menopause, and post-menopause journey. In fact, your entire life. There's amazing science behind it. I will link some beautiful YouTube examples for you in the show notes. Number 8, take a good supplement. Now, our sponsor is MenoMe. So, Mary Perry and Perky Post from MenoMe both contain something called Saffron, which is saffron, and it has had a lot of tests done on it, which have shown that it supports sleep. And after 4 weeks, it showed that an improved sleep and the quality of sleep and the restorative sleep. So it's a really big deal because a lot of us don't awake refreshed. So it supports that good quality sleep wake cycle that we all want to need. So I'm going to link to you in the show notes about those as well, and also some other little episodes with more information on that. Also, so number 9, you might have got this, but number 9 is I would highly recommend investing in Dr. Matthew Walker's Why We Sleep. It's not an international bestseller for nothing. There is so much science of it in it. I couldn't go into most of it here. We will have a sleep expert upcoming very soon, in a couple of weeks actually. So I hope to share a bit more with you. So to wrap up, sleep is one of the most underrated things, but it can have a huge impact on our perimenopause and menopause journey, and it's actually a precious gem, a diamond. So if you have had sleep issues, I very much hope that you got some tidbit out of here that could help you. if so, please let me know. Just drop me a line. I would love to know. My details are in the show notes. So, yeah, just hit me up and let me know. And if there are any other subjects you would like to see covered on Women on Fire, please let me know those too, because always open to them. So thank you very, very much for your time and joining me in this not so mini pause. Thank you.